The Mirage of Unity, the Rise of Shadows, and the Contributions of Somaliland. When Somaliland and Mogadishu first united, they envisioned a strong, united Somalia, a nation where every region would contribute equally to its development. Somaliland, with its education, history, and administrative expertise, brought much-needed knowledge and skills to the new union. Somalilanders worked hard to build the country, creating a foundation of education, banking systems, and legal frameworks. They helped form the national identity, establishing the Somali alphabet and providing the knowledge that would fuel Somalia's future. However, the reality of the union was different from the vision. The Darod clan, with its historical ties to Italian colonialists, found itself in a dominant position, securing both the first and second presidencies. The Hawiye clan, though a major part of the population, found itself sidelined during these early years of the Union. The Darod had long collaborated with the Italians, often performing the dirty work that kept the colonial system intact. Their role, much like the Indians under British rule, was to serve the colonial machine without question, losing their dignity and independence in the process. When Somaliland joined the Union, they aimed to bring balance, sharing their wealth of knowledge and empowering all regions. Somalilanders welcomed the Hawiye clan, providing them with the tools and education to stand on equal footing. However, this act of empowerment created jealousy among some in the Darod clan, who were not used to sharing power. Somaliland had been a beacon of self-reliance, and its vision of unity did not sit well with the entrenched power structures that had dominated the South for so long. The Soviet Union and Somalia's rise. In the early years after the Union, Somalia received support from the Soviet Union. This assistance helped Somalia transform rapidly. Somali students were sent to Moscow and Kiev, where they studied in top universities and technical schools. When they returned, they brought with them the knowledge to build a modern nation. The Soviet Union's influence played a critical role in shaping Somalia's military, education, and industrial development. Somalia's military became one of the strongest in Africa, backed by the Soviets who provided training, resources, and equipment. The country's infrastructure grew, and the education system flourished. In a short time, Somalia rose to become a superpower in Africa, with a military that was feared and a growing economy. The Union, at its peak, represented the strength of the Somali people, working together, empowered by the Soviets, and united in their desire to build a better future. And as Somaliland continued to watch, they realized the full extent of the betrayal. They had been used, overlooked, and ultimate. The shadows rise. However, despite the progress, there were those who were not happy with the Soviet involvement in Somalia. Behind the scenes, a shadowy figure emerged, someone who was quietly working to undermine the unity that had been built. This individual, much like in previous eras of colonial manipulation, began recruiting young, disenfranchised men, like a poor young man with little education who didn't understand basic mathematics, but had an immense hunger for power. This young man was carefully groomed, trained, and empowered, given resources, education, and support that allowed him to rise. While others worked tirelessly to build the nation, he was being prepared for a different mission, one that would eventually lead to the fracturing of the unity between Somaliland and the rest of Somalia. This figure, along with his hidden benefactors, would come to symbolize the forces working against the progress that had been made, slowly but surely dismantling the dreams of unity and strength that Somaliland had hoped for. Conclusion: a nation built, a dream betrayed. In the end, Somaliland's people had given everything. They had shared their knowledge, their vision, and their hard work. They had empowered not only themselves, but the entire nation of Somalia. And yet, despite their sacrifices and contributions, they were left to watch as others, who had not given the same, took the reins of power. Somaliland's legacy was one of dedication, of building a nation from the ground up. But the shadowy forces of self-interest and betrayal would soon rise.
This is the untold history of Somaliland, a nation that once stood tall, then was quietly brought to its knees.